Not the Chuddle.
Chuddle. Surprise.
I have a real soft spot for evil.
Blood flying everywhere.
So good.
I'm a big boy who doesn't get scared.
Out of the mist and into the fog, it's Chuddle the Pod.
Sup, Chuddle Club members, and welcome to a brand new episode of Chuddle the Pod. This is a very special getting to know episode. I am Sam, and I'm joined by Ross.
Oh, hey.
And Bryan will be joining us as soon as he can jump in. Huh? That's his trademark. But we are here today to talk to the directors of the new movie Lowlifes on Tubi Original. We just covered the movie, loved it. I followed them both on Instagram and was kind of liking stuff and just want to know what I was letting Mitch know, because he appeared a little more active on Instagram, how much I love the movie. And we got to talking, and now they're here, and I couldn't be more excited. So before we get into business, we want to thank our coven real quick, our coven of patrons. Your sacrifice gives us life, and we thank your beautiful souls.
Thanks, guys.
So we'll start off where it all starts off. Horror. Is horror your genre? If it is your genre, where did it start? And we can start with Tesh.
Yeah, it's not my genre. I haven't grown up watching too many horror movies. I was kind of always scared to watch them, but I love making horror. I kind of fell into making horror movies more than wanting to watch them. I love the gags, the effects, the being able to like immerse into the world, how people on set react to it. And I think there's a very interesting dynamic that kind of comes in when you're someone who doesn't have all these references to things or things from. I just love coming up with my own ideas and coming up with things that are going to creep me out or scare me. So in the moment, it's easy to be immersed and not worry about what's been out there and stuff like that. I love filmmaking to its core, and horror is just such a great visceral type of filmmaking experience. So I love creating horror films, which is that's interesting, awesome. Different kind of take. But I'll toss it over to Mitch because he's like complete.
Yeah, I am the yin to Tesh's yang. I am absolutely a horror guy. It's been my genre my whole life, ever since I was really young, watching movies like Child's Play 2, which was like actually my first horror movie, funnily enough.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, I was that kid who had that note on their account at the video store from their parents that like, Mitch can rent anything, just don't bother me at work. So I've been watching this stuff from a young age, and with that comes seeing everything, like you guys, listening to you guys talk, like you've seen everything. You have such a wealth of knowledge of the genre, and I've been a student as well. So, there's something in common that a lot of bad horror movies have is people not like respecting what has been done before and doing things the same over and over and over again. And that's where it's been really, a breath of fresh air, being able to work with Tesh, where we kind of really balance each other out. So like there was a lot of attention to detail for me in what has been done or what hasn't been done, or how we can pay homage to the greats and stuff like that. And I just think it's like a match made in heaven for us to link up, because we're like polar opposites, but we're so much alike as well. We just share a lot of the same values.
Especially for this movie that like plays with so many known tropes, but also like bringing something where you don't know any of those things. Really is an interesting blend there. So, well, I guess I know for Tesh that there is no horror, or maybe there is one or two now that you're doing horror films, but that are anything particularly influential that made you want to make a horror movie?
Yeah, I mean, for me, watching Get Out made me want to make horror movies. Just as a person of color, just being able to see like I can take my experiences and turn them into these like really interesting allegories.
Yeah,
it's always like that was pretty great, because it explored so many dynamics without ever like shoving it down your throat or making it too on the nose about it, but just turns it into a really wonderful experience that's good for anybody to watch. And I'm also a huge fan of Thing, because I just love suspense and any Hitchcockian kind of tension building and stuff like that. Like I love designing those kinds of movies that really have that kind of like thriller mindfuck aspect to it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, you do. We covered influence on here, and we had Curtis David Harder on for Getting to Know. So we're fans, and we agree.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's always really cool to have a it's almost like the movie's a ticking time bomb, where it's just like you have these scenarios that are set up, and as the audience, you know that it's like the timer's going down. You know what I mean? Where it's like, and then that tension that gets built up. And I feel like in both Influencer and Lowlifes here, like that we that I don't know, it's just like it had this like impending, like, I don't know, it's like a machine, and this is like it kept on like riveting the entire time, and like so the entire movie you're just kind of like, oh shit, oh fuck, okay, oh shit, all right.
It's what I love. It's what I want. Mitch, was there anything? I know you said Child Play 2 kind of seems like it may have sent you on your horror journey, but was there any movie that made you want to make a
I think
movie?
it was like really Jaws is my favorite movie of all time, so that one's always going to get the credit for that. But Scream is a huge one for me. Saw that one at a young age, and I actually just had the chance to watch it with Tesh in a crowd in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. They were doing this drunken cinema where everyone has glow sticks. They turned into a drinking game. But that
sounds amazing.
It was so much fun, and like seeing that movie with a crowd like that makes you realize that it's always been hilarious. Like it's a really funny movie. But as a kid, it took me like 6 tries to get through the cold open with Drew Barrymore because I was just so scared of it. And once
I pressed stop on the VHS when I rented it as soon as she got stabbed, that first one.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that one I owe a lot to. I am 100% Randy. Unfortunately, like the Jamie Kennedy character worked in a video store, was insufferably annoying about horror movies and logic. And so that one. And then most recently, though, I was a programmer for the Saskatoon Fantastic Film Festival in Dark Bridges, which was a local film festival back home. And seeing movies like Green Room and Blue Ruin were big ones for me. So like Jeremy Saulnier, I'm a huge horror fan, but I'm also just a fan of cinema. So seeing movies like Blue Ruin really, married the tension and the thrills with something like a Coen Brothers movie or a P.T. Anderson movie. But Green Room was actually really, really huge for me because I grew up playing in bands and everything too. So marrying those two. And luckily enough, we actually used that movie as a reference for like the visual look and style of Lowlifes a lot. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
If you listen to the episode, I love the style, the whole thing. We call it cockles here, stuff that warms the cockles of your heart. Just like you like the vibe and the feel of it. And Lowlifes is just overflowing for me on the cockles. All right. Let's just jump into some Lowlifes questions specifically. First thing, how did you get attached to the movie? How did you guys get involved?
Tesh and I met working we were working for the same production company, and they got the script, they had the producers attached, and they were making this movie Lowlifes for Tubi. I was originally going to coordinate it. It was Tesh's last day at work, and he actually was leaving the company that day. And it was really just a right place, right time thing. They're having trouble finding directors or a director, and Tesh and I were sitting beside each other. We read the script. Something I haven't done enough is give Tesh credit for really, really pushing me to become involved with this film and saying he saw my film and was a champion of my short film and said, you should be trying to do this. And then he asked me to team up with him. And then, we just got going.
That's awesome. Good friend right there.
Very good friend.
So casting process, did you know any of these actors already? Did you have anybody in mind, or was it just a cold call for the whole thing?
I mean, for us, it's just like we came off of doing so many short films where we were always recruiting our buddies and friends that, being able to do this, I really wanted to see what kind of talent was out there and work with the casting director to find the best people possible, keep in a complete open mind, and just kind of organically try to find the best people for each roles. And luckily some of them ended up being our friends, but we didn't nudge that way. They just kind of earned that on their own merit.
Oh, that's cool.
Like Big Mac, who plays, or Daley Nelson, who plays Big Mac as an example, is a good friend of Mitch. And then I work with Brenna Llewellyn, who plays Savannah and different projects in the past. But I'm kind of like, when their tapes rolled in, it's just like, I'm staying out of it. Like, based on how good their performances were. And of course, it was kind of like a no-brainer when we were bringing it along. And we one of our big challenges was like finding the right Amy, just because we needed someone with like, it's a character that's so easily on the page, can just be played flat. And if it is like without the inner like Shakespearean complexity, as he sold it, Amanda Fix on, it kind of loses it's so easy to like, it's such a tricky character, and it can be one dimensional. So we definitely struggle with it. But then our casting director suggested Amanda Fix as like an option. And then we actually reached out to her as well, and her manager, and kind of like talked to her, because she is someone that carries all that depth and everything as a person and asks those kinds of questions. So just help with the performance, just giving it more layers than it would have had otherwise. So yeah, for us, like, for both of us, casting is so important. I feel like so many films live and die based on like what these actors are willing to get through, and especially when we're genre weaving and things dial up and change, you need that kind of like ability to work with like a great group of people who are willing to just play with each other and really trust us to go into some really terrifying places for them. And also from like a performative standpoint, like especially Matt McCall, like what he has to do for Keith as an example, like just really go from serious thriller to like full-blown cartoon. It's like we really lucked out ultimately with everybody that we got. You really did. That's why I had to ask the question, because every character just sings so much in their role, you know what I mean? They really just nail it. They do bring a lot of depth to it, as you said, without seeming it's easy for these characters to seem one-dimensional, and they especially on, like you said, on the page. And I think everybody, you're kind of wondering what else is going on with them that we don't know, which is awesome.
Yeah, we lucked out huge just across the board with them. But even mentioning like bringing our friends aboard, Alex Calvert is a good buddy of mine. He plays Deputy White. And on the page, he was written to be like, a 60-year-old, just generic cop. And then it's like, Alex he's played like, I'm pretty sure he played God in Supernatural. I'd never watched Supernatural.
He's the devil's son in Supernatural.
But like, so he's always playing these dark, stoic, or just creepy characters. And Tesh and I really bond over a love of Coen Brothers films, and like Fargo was something we talked about a lot in this, and like bringing Deputy White to just be like that kind of lovable dipshit. Alex just nailed, and being able to give him a mustache and his hat and show a different side of him that the world has yet to see. It's those kinds of happy accidents that are, it was just a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Was there what was the most challenging scene to film for you guys? Was there one that kind of stands out above the others?
I have two that come to mind, but I want to hear it. Like definitely,
you can go ahead.
Definitely like the finale, like the last, like just chaos. Yeah. Bodies flying everywhere. There's that. But something that a lot of people don't talk about when talking about this is like dinner table sequences, and being able to have to cover so many characters, and
like the eye lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, and just placing people in the right areas, and especially when we decided that we wanted to get stylistic with it and have like, the families communicating with each other under the table and all that stuff. Like that was a really, I would say it was challenging, but that one was just really fun. Really rewarding.
I was gonna say, like,
I love that scene.
It's such what's really amazing about those of that scene, and particularly like the house scenes, is that like I feel from a directing standpoint and cinematography standpoint, because you're in such a tight location and filming from so many different angles, is that like between the continuity and the actors moving and everything like that, I feel like it's almost like Charlie Day with like all of the lines, like, in the mailroom being like, okay, so we got to film like this. I could only imagine, because I'm assuming the tighter the location is, the more challenging it becomes to kind of meld all of these shots together cohesively, because you don't have the sandbox of like an outdoors or like the woods or things like that where you've got like, because that dinner scene plays out amazing because you do have the subtext of the family looking at each other, which reads amazing, all while like the family that's in that, like the red, well, for better choice words, the redneck family that's hanging out in there is also like more subdued, but everything reads really well. Yeah, I gotta imagine it must have been like difficult, especially for the finale, just to like keep that momentum and keep those shots, you know?
Well, it's more so we would kind of go. We only had 12 days to shoot this movie.
Holy crap!
God, really?
Yeah.
Whoa!
Like that's something that we see like a lot of comments on Letterboxd or something like that go like, oh wow, like Tubi's upping their budget. No, we got the same budget every other Tubi movie gets. We got the same resources they all get. It's just we learn how to make better use of it. You know, it's just like
no kidding.
Coming from like our grassroots.
Tubi Original is a good name for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about the finale is that we had to shoot all of the fights on the same day. Wow. So we were just like the Amy and Savannah fight, and then the big like the whole like kerfuffle with like Vern and Keith
and Jeff and
all that eyeball out.
Amy and Savannah.
We did like 62 setups, and we were just running on 2 cameras and just like firing on all cylinders. It was just kind of
that's amazing. It's kind of amazing.
Like, yeah, it's pretty nuts. And
prep must have been essential.
Yeah, but you know the thing is that Mitch knows this. It's like challenging is not the word for me. It's more, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's because like when we got that chance and so many directors were kind of like, holy shit, like there's like 11 deaths, 12 days. Who's going to do this? For us, we were like, man, this is fun. This is kind of like time to mad scientist up. It's like, I think there was a moment just like, fuck it, let's ball. And we just had the absolute blast. Cause that's the thing is like, you know, we see a lot of people like commenting on logic or like nitpicking things. But for us, we realized like what the fun of this movie is. And then we pretty much let all of our choices be guided by like, what's fun, what's something that we can do within these confines, limits, these restrictions, because it's you shouldn't be making movies in 12 days. This is kind of like I kept pushing it, but then the thing is we had so much fun making it because of those constraints. I think going back to that idea of like the shots and the difficulty, it's a lot of our own experience paying off from doing these kinds of low budget things, like even scaling all the way from influencer and then like working on a whole bunch of shorts and everything. It's just, and then a lot of trust in our performers, because it's like when they were just like singing and we were just able to place the cameras and they would just pull so much magic that it was pretty much became point and shoot after a certain time, right? It's just like we were just like rolling with it. We designed some really fun stuff. Like we did top lighting, which was kind of taking it from movies like Inglourious Bastards and a lot of Tarantino and Robert Richardson work, where like when you see their like table scenes and stuff like that, you see this heavy glow come from above and you don't really know where it is, but it's like lighting them and illuminating them. And when we looked at that, we were like, okay, if we have a top light, then we're not bringing lights in or anything like that. So we just kind of designed a stage where actors can do what they need to and the camera can just fly as we need to, so we can get as much as possible.
That's great.
Instead of like moving for every lighting setup as they normally do. So it was kind of like the trick of the trade with that confined location is like, well, it's going to give us freedom. So it actually was one of the most liberating shooting processes compared to like when we have to like meticulously shoot for lighting angles or anything like that. Instead, we had like a great top lit setup, pre-lit at the top of the day, and then after that we were just flying and we were just like, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this, and then we were just like knocking them off as we went along. So
that's amazing. Organically kind of leads to the next question. Like, were there any happy accidents while shooting because of the speed rate in which you guys were doing it?
Or the whole movie?
Yeah, the entire movie. And like Tesh said too, though, like something that he does really well is working under pressure. So like when you see when you find out Tesh gets this sick like light in his eye when he sees a challenge, and then you see him execute it, and it's just so much fun. But I think one of the like I don't even know if you consider this a happy accident, but once again back to Alex Calvert, who played Deputy White. We found out he was wearing his hat backwards the whole time, and like that just adds much to his dumbass character.
I love that so much.
So like that's like kind of a little happy accident, but the whole fucking movie is.
That's the
amazing.
best answer.
Yeah.
So whenever I see co-directors on a movie, I'm always curious about the relationship. And you've already kind of spoken to this, how you guys are sort of the yin and yang, and how you got into the movie. But I'm just curious how it works, is how the partnership is. Does somebody specify in one thing over another? Do you both handle things equally? Advantages, disadvantages?
Yeah, I think one of the ways we split it up is Tesh is really like, he's so technically proficient. I mean, just across the board, he's just a technical filmmaker. And just creative as hell. But, it was obviously, he put a lot of faith in me to handle, a lot of the gore and like kind of the horror sensibilities. And then for those really heavy days, like the dinner table scene where we have, several characters in a scene, we would each split up which actors we were going to cover.
Okay.
So that we were never giving the same actor two different notes. But yeah, it was a lot of that. Tesh, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's like, just delegating things like, Mitch would call action, I would call cut, like those kinds of things, so that we could really just even out so the information's not being spread out. But I think the other thing is like, this is a fun opportunity for us to immerse ourselves into like a process of trust. And, it's like for us, like we really had nothing to lose by making this, and we it was kind of like everything was stacked against us to such a degree that it was such a we were just like, what, it's just going to be great for us to get something,
right?
So it's like, which in turn became freedom, and then that I think opened up for like the opportunity for us to like trust each other and just like work through the kind of like whatever came up. Like we would just be able to like solve it and just deal with it. And we had a lot of conversations beforehand, but I think the big thing that we align on is I think it's almost impossible to do it if you don't align on taste. And I think ultimately, regardless of like what came into us into becoming filmmakers, we really agree with like what we want to make and the things that we're excited. Like when we're seeing takes, we are pretty much like, I think 98% aligned on like performance takes or like ideas of when it's good and stuff like that. So I think there's no, it's really a fortune to, I think, find somebody in these kinds of constraints that you have a very similar sensibility and taste about with these kinds of things. I think there's a lot to do with us like growing up around, like we were born in the same year and then like kind of grew up in the prairies. So there's like a lot of similarity in terms of our influences differently outside of film that kind of got us there. Right. And I think that helped a long way to just kind of create like a unity within it.
Oh, totally. And when it comes to a cannibal movie, taste is pretty key.
Exactly.
I had to. So were there different? So obviously, like Mitch, you are more not based in, but like you have a lot more horror background, and Tesh, you kind of like are getting into horror and had other like cinematic kind of influences. Were there certain things that you guys wanted, Tesh, like was there something like outside of the horror realm that you wanted to bring into this movie that influenced you outside of it? And then same thing with like Mitch, was there something that like was in the horror basis that you were kind of like, man, I would really like to my kind of interpretation of this, or I would love to see this in film, and how do those kind of converge while you guys were directing?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's inevitable with any movie I make to first and foremost, like not ask what a scene is in terms of like the genre, but just in terms of finding the right energy for the scene and the tone for a scene. So if it's like a romance, if it's a comedy, if it's like thriller, being able to really hone in on maximizing those feelings. And I think genre weaving is like one of my abilities that I really love, because I've always been so multi-genre in the first place, like comedy and all of that stuff. That I love directing scenes as if like that's the only genre we're making. So when it's like a romance scene, treating it only like a romance. When it's a thriller scene, like when she's like investigating in the RV with the flashlight on, just like pulling that from Seven. I think we use like Linklater and Before movies as a reference for all of the Savannah and Amy scenes when they were just kind of like meet cuting, and like even when she comes out of the bathroom for the first time and when in the bed together, just kind of taking away everything else and just kind of making it about that presence and the moment is, I think, the big thing. Again, it's like that's the thing with the feature film is it's so long, and it's like there's so much variations that can happen that you really get the chance to like allow scenes to become their own small movies. And like that, I think philosophically just creates an engine where a movie feels like a breath of fresh air constantly, because you are kind of doing like very intentional switch ups, but it's by fully committing to like what these characters' mindsets are.
Oh yeah.
And I think I just kind of ask like, what is the character's headspace, and then just treating the entire moment centered around it. So if we had to pull from like Whiplash in this moment, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like, even in the fight scene, it's just kind of like going there. So
Yeah.
it's not horror that I would necessarily always pull on, but even like, but I'll throw that to Mitch.
Yeah, no, it's like obviously when we like got the original script and everything, you can't deny that it's a riff on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's on The Hills Have Eyes, all these movies that I grew up loving, Texas Chainsaw being one of my favorite ones. But it's very much written to feel like a B movie, and we didn't want to make that. Like, I love B movies. I have tons of fun watching movies like Basket Case 1 through 3, but I don't have any interest in making that.
Totally.
So being able to, bring Tesh's grounded sensibilities, like both of our grounded sensibilities, and really kind of give this movie an edge that couldn't have been done by anyone other than us. It's just like that. And I hope that doesn't sound egotistical. It's just like you always want to make something original.
It totally reads. I mean, like one scene that in particular to me is the RV scene where they're doing the dismemberment in the shower, and then like they're kind of like moving. But I was so focused on the family dynamic that like them dismembering a body and putting it in was like secondary. You know what I mean? Where I was like, obviously there's something horrific going on, but like I'm more encapsulated by like the actual dynamic of this family, which you guys caught and was just like, I think more so than most films that I've seen is that even during the most horrific things going through is that they had this backbone of it, like,
like
just
domestic.
It was like I was watching like these domestic issues happen with this family who also just happened to be cannibalistic serial killers. You know what I mean? And I think that was like, after watching it like 2 or 3 times, I was like, God damn, I've never seen a movie where like I'm equally as enthralled with that dynamic versus like, I don't know, like the interpersonal connections were shot so well that I was like, oh, this is like, I could just watch this like and not worry about the cannibalism at all. Like it was just, it was just a really cool blending of kind of just like a really great horror movie, but also really compelling kind of just like situations with family too.
Yeah. Family drama.
That's probably like the greatest life hack to low budget filmmaking. That you see that in Joss, you see that in like everything is like, when you have all these like constraints and everything thrown at you, if your only priority is characters and their relationships, the movie can go way farther than it normally can. It like elevates because that's what it's kind of like standing on. And that's definitely a big part of, that's all we wanted to trust. And that's why like the casting and all those things were important, is because we wanted to give these people that could feel like they had the chemistry to be with each other and everything like that. But yeah, it's honestly like, characters and relationships is like, Tarantino's bread and butter, and like Coen Brothers and like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad is like definitely like that energy, just being in the RV and everything, that you can't like not have some of that Vince Gilligan energy in there. And it's all like being able to use the relationships people have with each other to make us care and get invested into all of that stuff. That's always like, I think if you have $0 and that's what you need to lean on, I think you can still make a compelling film. For sure.
Absolutely. I'm happy that read for you guys, because I know one of my favorite things about like especially modern horror movies or movies that kind of bend the genre a little bit is, we really love how it feels like a horror movie for the first act, and then the second act you kind of forget that it's a horror movie because you're just kind of getting to know the characters. And then, surprise, we show you something extremely fucked up.
The romance in the second act.
And it makes it all like mean more. And like, so that was some of the most rewarding and fun stuff to bring to this film.
Oh, totally. It feels like, sometimes when specifically like with like horror comedies, is that the comedy is used to diffuse the audience, and then the horrific stuff happens, which makes it even more like horrifying. And what's cool about this one is that it's like the interpersonal dynamics of these families and these people is the disarming part of this movie, because they get so like sucked into that. So when something actually super fucked up happens, it just hits. It's like a double punch versus like, you know, normal movies, it would just be like a little jab. Like I got uppercutted a bunch of times in this movie and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Well, touching on what we just talked about, I think leads well to the next question. So in the movie, we know there's the Texas Chainsaw shot, and you have already mentioned that that's one of your favorite movies. And then we knew, actually, I got from the IMDb trivia about the Tim Tam candy being a reference to like a Photoshop candy bar.
Did you know about this, Tesh? Because I didn't know about this.
I don't know.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
It's the Wikipedia movie trivia.
Yeah.
I know the reason I asked for Tim Tam is I was referring to a Kit Kat, and then I just wanted it in purple. So
that's so
I have
funny.
no idea where that IMDb came from. I was literally like, "Hey, can we do the Kit Kat bar, but except just purple?" Was like no to our prop
That's
master.
amazing.
So
I love it. I'm so glad I brought that up then. But in the movie, I'm sure there's other homages or Easter eggs that we haven't picked up on. Do you have a favorite, or is there one that you've been like waiting for people to say that you're not going to tell us?
No, like the Texas Chainsaw one was very important to me. I brought that up like right as soon as we started going to pre-production for this thing. And to me, it was just a way to, you know, kind of honor the great, like the granddaddy of the horror genre is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's like the most iconic shot in horror. And there's just like this perfect opportunity to do it at the perfect time.
Right.
So that one I really loved. Other than that, I think the only one that really comes to mind is we shot it in Fox Mulder's house from the X-Files. So we put like a I Want to Believe poster in Savannah's room.
That's amazing.
I can't believe I didn't notice that.
Well,
We're big X-Files fans here.
Yeah.
Big X-Files fans.
I'm pretty sure he only uses it like it's the exterior of the house, and then there's like the living room works as his office or something like that. But yeah, so that was just really fun. But it's a very famous filming location out here. So there's several movies like I'm not sure if you guys saw the movie Antlers. I know they shot that movie in that house as well.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, other than that, like one thing I loved is because Tesh isn't like that at all. Like he doesn't. There's always just focused on making something original and just like, you know, doing what feels right to him. And when we're editing it, there's like the scene where Keith is like leaning into Julianne where he's about to cut her fingers off. And our editor was like, "Oh, I love this Alien 3 shot." And it's like, that was never the intention, but it's there.
Yeah.
that happens to me all the time. I see so many movies or like reviews for anything that I make where people are like, "Oh, you're pulling from this or you're pulling from that." I'm like, I don't care. It's like, so I think like everyone's going to come up with ideas regardless of what it is. I think the discovery process is really fun for me, and you never really know. But I think it's like the thing. It's like you find the right moments and stuff like that. Before, I used to feel so insecure about not watching enough movies. You know, you hear all these interviews like Scorsese and Tarantino and PTA, and you're like, "Oh my God, these guys are like encyclopedic knowledge. I need to like catch up." But at some point, I've kind of just realized, like with the modern day as this is, and this is where I get zen and spiritual about things. Is like I'm like, okay, I can't catch up. I'm just gonna keep up to things if I can, and then I'm just gonna let everything else go, and I'll just like figure things out. And if it seems like someone else has discovered it before, I don't care. It's like, call it a homage or whatever it is. But there's definitely moments, and even like I think even with influencer people are like, "Oh, it's like it reminds me of a lot of Talented Mr. Ripley." I'm like, look, we were just at a KFC when we came up with this idea, and like thought about what's a fun Southeast Asia movie that we can come up with, and it organically unfolded into what that was when we're thinking about like generating it. So it's like, of course it's got similarities, but it's like I think it's like I love
didn't pick up on that one. I thought it, for me, on Influencer, I thought Psycho just because of, you know, there's a twist in it.
We love her switch who the protagonist is type of thing. I think that's definitely, even with Lowlifes, that kind of probably hooked me to at least like want to make this and direct this because of that kind of like, oh wow, like if it didn't have that extra twist, it wouldn't probably be as compelling.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely. Any movie where the first act ends and you realize you're not watching the movie you thought you were watching gets me excited.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So there's a line of dialogue about the RV being Amy's grandfather's. I think Sam and most of us took it to mean, it took it to mean that Keith grew up in a family doing the same thing that they're doing today. Is that kind of the intent? Is this like generational cannibalism, or is this a one-off family?
That's a happy accident right there. It's like we just we couldn't find a good RV, and that one looked like it literally looked like a murder wagon. So we threw that line in last minute to explode it.
We figured we might as well make it an intergenerational family murder wagon,
just to explain why we couldn't get a better RV.
Why it looked that way. Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, definitely. Now Keith grew up doing this with his dad, and then
I love Pearl. So it's if we can always have like a Pearl flashback to anything, then I think the Mannings definitely deserve that, but we'll see.
Right.
All right. In that scene Ross was talking about, the domestic scene where they're cutting up the bodies in the RV, Amy slaps Jeffrey, and that looks like a real slap. Was that a real slap, Mitch?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
that was a moment where Tesh and I were both behind the monitors, and we just like, what the fuck?
Whoa.
But then obviously we did our due diligence and tried getting everyone to rein it back, but they were really committed to it, and they were both having fun. But yeah, that required very minimal sound effects.
Yeah, no, for sure. So was that something the actors like? It was just like, go for it, that type of thing, and you guys didn't know what was happening.
Well, no, we just for the record, we never would ask them to go.
No, right. Yeah, not you asking that. I was saying like maybe Jeffrey said, I don't know the actor's name, said it to the girl playing Amy.
No, we did the opposite. We were trying.
They get carried away. Yeah. They got carried away a lot. Okay. It's I think I definitely saw the intensity of them just like getting so into their performance that they forget about like taking care of their own physical well-being. And that's definitely a good learning point about when you open it up to that degree where they're having so much fun and it's such a safe space for them. Sometimes they're forgetting what's happening. The body can feel residual.
I feel like you need to have like a whistle or something like that behind, like a ref whistle. Like, all right, hold on, wait.
We had a stunt coordinator to do that and pull things back as needed to remind them.
It just speaks to the casting again, because they get so into what they're doing, they forget about their personal safety.
Loved it. They're psychos, but they love it.
And actually, speaking of psychos, each of the cannibal family members felt like they were their own kind of style of killing / contributing. Did you draw any influence from either real life or other horror movie villains for each family member? Because it was like, it was really cool seeing them be different kinds of killers. You know what I mean? And I thought that was a really fun dynamic instead of them all just being carbon copies of, was there kind of like
that tickled Tesh? He laughed at it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disclose the person that we kind of based a lot of Keith on, but that was definitely inspired by
someone we know.
You know what? I'm going to say this. Just to be saucy enough. It was inspired by someone involved with the production team. One of the producers inspired it. Now, there's about 11 of them. So it doesn't matter who it is. Go nuts on it.
That's amazing.
We also, like, for the notes when we were coming up with like character bios and for the casting process, like I'd written that Keith was a mix between Chevy Chase in Vacation and Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. So he perfectly embodies that as well.
He absolutely does. That sounds like a description Ross would write for the character.
He nailed multiple inspirations.
Yes.
And I think Tesh had said, like, he referenced Jeffrey as Bruce from Jaws. Because, like, when he's running around Big Mac and, like, how you can't really see him and you don't know when he's coming out.
We referenced Jaws for that. It's just like, we had so little resources that we're like, what if he just keeps disappearing instead of, like, showing that? We just kind of have him like,
is there a barrel pops up? It's by a barrel.
It is by
Jaws link again.
Yeah. It's honestly like it's part of the fun of giving those roles over to the actors at any point too. I think it's like with any film, it's such a fun opportunity to work with incredible actors and then just let them keep making it their own and finding those little details and constantly like bringing identities. I think it kind of goes back to something similar with like CW and Influencer as well, where, you know, we casted Cassandra because she was the best actor for that role, but the birthmark that usually gets referenced a lot wasn't like a contributing factor to it, but it kind of adds to like, you know, it's something that people bring up a lot because it's just like
it's unusual, but it's
thing. But that's just like
interesting and absolutely.
Yeah, it's really about the performers being able to make it their own and embody it with whatever they need to. But it's fun to see that kind of freedom result in these characters becoming more iconic through it, and it'll be fun to see like what more we can create. That's always the exciting discovery process for me with every movie. Yeah, once like you write it, versus once you let an actor embody it, then it just becomes its own thing, you know. Like Gene Wilder's Blanca, like they're like his curly hair and stuff like that. You can't even like script that, you know, that look, that essence and stuff like that. As soon as like that actor is cast into it, there's also like an element to it, and casting is a huge component to that aspect as well. Like even with Jeffrey, just mentioning that is there was discussions for us or trying to get like a 9-year-old to play that character, but then instead of just casting Josh, there's like a completely different type of like psychopathic energy that goes with like him acting a very way. But we never gave Josh that reference to act 9. No, it's like be a teenager. But like it's the dialogue is still the same.
Psychopath.
It's like funnier that a 17-year-old is like obsessed with Mad Libs and killing people. Those are the only
chocolate bar. And continuously offering people candy.
Yeah, appeasing his father, which he'll always live in the shadow of. That was a lot of fun to play with that character.
Just trying to make his dad happy, making his mom mad. And
I know you just brought up with Influencer, but like when you're writing certain characters and doing things like that, do you feel kind of like a, for a better choice of words, like a Dr. Frankenstein, like you create these things and then like they kind of have a life of their own after you hand it off to the actors? You know what I mean? Is there kind of is it liberating for you guys? Is it like, is there some hesitation in the beginning of it? Like, is there kind of like, what are the feelings? Because obviously like writing it and directing it are kind of are different things, but like when you see that accumulation of what you've written become someone, you know, that's got to kind of it's got to be a whole mixed bag of emotions.
I mean, I don't think I'd write if I wasn't ever excited by that handoff portion to the filmmaking. It's because like a script is like such a malleable, silly thing. It's like I don't take them seriously, and this is usually not good. Like writers trusting me with their things, because I'm like I don't treat a script like it's a sacred document or anything. Once their structures are there, once the characters are there, and it makes sense, there's so much room to play, so much creativity to unfold into it, so much like further we can go. So it's always just a great springboard, right? It's like, okay, now we have a baseline, but it's only going to get better depending on how good the starting point for a script is. I think it's really, you have to be an extremely incompetent director to turn a good script into a bad movie. But I think like bad scripts can be turned into great movies because of these factors that can come into it, right? It's like there's so much. I think it goes back to like, I think my philosophy of filmmaking, which is like that the feeling of liberation and discovery and everything like that, where the script is the period of the process that I'm the most excited to put behind me, and then jump into like figuring out who wants to enable it and make it their own, like across the board. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, ditto.
Nailed it. So I love the music in this movie. I've been listening to it on Spotify. Jordan Andrew is that, I'm assuming, who did it. That's what it says on Spotify.
Yeah, 2 first names.
Yeah. Did you already know him? How did his music come into this? It pairs so well with the movie. Again, it adds to the cockles for me. It just works. So just curious how that came together.
Yeah, I work with Jordan quite a bit. And he's a brilliant composer, and the thing is, like, he's so good at just kind of figuring out what the movie needs to become, and then find out like the creative places that he can go after. And again, we gave him so much trust and freedom to do his own thing. So we didn't know like the direction he would take or anything like that. We were just like, okay, just like play. And then he kind of came back with a lot of that stuff that was working. And then we were just able to kind of wrangle in those ideas into it. But a lot of the tone and a lot of the atmosphere and a lot of that kind of is credited to like his own imagination and kind of gunning for it.
Yeah. He worked with Tesh a bunch, but I met Jordan through this process, and now he's become a good buddy. And like, I just can't imagine this movie without him. Like his stuff is just so eclectic, and like there's so much. Like obviously, I think we talked about this, Sam, that he wrote that "Feeding Off Your Love" song,
right?
So like the guy just has such a wide range.
Love that song.
But I just remember when we were first, like, he wanted to know what kind of stuff we wanted, and Tesh is very adamant about, don't ask us what we like. We want what you want. Like, you got to bring your vision to this. There's a reason why we brought you on the team, and we trust him. And he fully delivered. But I just remember the first time he was talking about influences, he's like, he mentioned Doom. And I thought he's talking about Dune, like Denis Villeneuve's Dune. But I thought he said Doom. So I was like, no, we're not doing like heavy metal guitars.
Just thrashing.
Sleep, Electric Wizard.
But yeah, no, he's just absolutely brilliant. And I think he really elevated the film in several different places. But my personal favorite stuff with his is all the Amy and Savannah stuff. I really think he brought out a heart to the film, or just like really boosted it. So love his stuff. And yeah, you can listen on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
And I recommend that you do. All right. Where's our next question, Ross?
Oh, yeah. Would you, all right, I think you've kind of slightly already answered this, but would you guys be interested in exploring more of the Lowlifes universe you created, either through a prequel or the bloody aftermath of the events that happened in this one?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of out of her hands, I think, because Tubi owns it, and the company owns the rights. We were never the writers on it, so
right.
I don't think we have that. I mean, look, I can write prequels and sequels out of anything, and like I said, I love prequels, so
yeah.
There's definitely a world in which like there's ideas for both directions on how this can go, and I see that.
Yeah,
I see both
totally.
But I don't think like if this is like the same kind of like model that they're going to keep doing and things like that, it's not for me. So I'm like, I love making the kind of movies that we get to make. So this is kind of like, I think as far as
want to keep subverting.
Yeah, I don't mind even saying this publicly because I love burning bridges, as you can clearly tell. But this is probably a one with Tubi.
Okay.
So because like I like love the idea of being able to go in and prove that this can be done.
Yeah.
But it's not where I want to be like bottlenecked into. I want to make studio movies. I want to make the big movies. I want to make the stuff that you see in theaters. So I've got to stay hungry and like not just feed into whatever's comfortable and
whatever's
becomes like
working.
Totally.
Yeah, like that's probably like where my mindset goes in terms of being locked into like a prequel or a sequel to this, as much as like I would love to tap into. Now, if there was a world in which I could like just buy the rights and
do it,
do it, and just create a way bigger budget, get $10 million to make a cannibal movie or something, then maybe we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've definitely discussed like everything that we could do with it. And like, there are so many different fun places that you could take it, but it's a different beast when it's owned by a network already. And like Tesh said, it's just, we did it this one time, but there's certain things that we just can't bend on, again, in terms of, just giving everyone the proper playground to play in. This was kind of just it was a miracle. We had called in a lot of favors for this one. A lot of people worked above and beyond in every single department. We just would need more to do it again.
Absolutely.
Paid off. I think it's interesting how you guys were like, well, I mean, we can, so we should, right? Because really it's a Tubi original. If it didn't turn out as good as it did, it'd just be like a lot of other Tubi originals.
Yeah, I think the bar was so low that it gave us a lot of like us just showing up would have just like delivered something. But no, it's a testament to, I think, like what we got away from making this movie, and the big philosophical lesson from it was that feeling of how great it was to have that mindset regardless of what's at stake. Like now, I think even if we had 10, 15, 20 million dollars, I think it is an energy that we want to carry forward into that, because I think that level of trust and fun and collaboration and freedom leads to so many great things. And unfortunately, it's a thing that we're currently seeing dying in the industry, because so many studios and places have become so risk averse. The streamers, everybody, they're like, you're seeing that with Marvel, you're seeing that with like so many things. They're so afraid of these like not deviating too much from their formulas that the fun to be had with these characters are putting in the back burner. And that's the one thing I'm seeing. Like I was such a fan of Marvel movies and stuff like that too, all the way up to Endgame. But then after that, it's just become this like devolution where like they could just have fun with like what got us there, which was these relationships and these characters, like we were mentioned earlier. And then that's just like not a priority anymore. And the same thing with Star Wars. It's like they're forgetting like why people paid money to watch these things in the first place. And we would love to like keep trying to protect that and remember that and just like enable that trust to the creatives again. And I think that's what really good directing is to me, is just like being in a place where you're comfortable enough with who you are that you can trust the people that you're bringing on board, and then like work towards something that I think can really like punch above its weight class regardless of what it is.
Well said. Ross, this was your question, right? This next one.
All right. So in a film that has some pretty awesome gore scenes, did you guys find it fun working alongside the special effects department? And was there anything that you had planned that didn't make it into the movie? Obviously, because you guys are, 12 days.
12 days.
Oh my God. Yeah. 12 days. Was there like a special effect or a gore effect that you guys wanted to do, and just because of the time limitations just couldn't pull it off? And how was working with the special effects team? Because the gore in this is like so good.
Yeah, Andy Lee is an absolute genius. He worked with Tesh on his previous short, Proof of Concept Raksha, which you guys should watch. It's on YouTube. It's awesome.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, Andy's just like an absolute mad lad. He was working 24/7 on this thing, building body parts, and
Lindsay as
well.
Lindsay,
yeah, they're both just so incredible. And yeah, like front to back, like obviously I grew up just a horror kid, so special effects, makeup effects are such a huge thing for me. So it was an absolute dream working with him and watching him and Lindsay do their thing and really bring out stuff that I don't think anyone else could have done. Like he just absolutely, they nailed everything. So that was some of the highlights for me. Especially like, Andy and Lindsay had built the head for Keith when he gets his head smashed in, and it meant a lot to me that he's like, I will let you guys smash it if Mitch smashes it. So that was me bringing the sledge down, because he knows like that's my Disneyland right there. Like that's the funnest stuff in the world to me. So yeah, it was an absolute dream for me, but they are just incredible.
Yeah, and
that's a good head smash too.
Oh yeah. With the time constraints and everything too, we pretty much had to use every effect and everything that we planned for. But there's no way that we were ever going to let the work that they put in not be captured on camera. So we always like made sure and prioritized that anything that they built, we had. And I think the one great thing is like the story was impossible to tell without all that gore and everything too. So it just like we had to get it anyway. We sure with that kind of low budget and time constraint that was always just dialed in, and we got everything that we planned and set out to make. The only difference is like the question is like before on the writing process, if we could come up with more ideas, then we would come up with 100 ideas that could be done. On more crazier things to do to them, but no, we were really lucky to have some extremely great technicians.
Yeah,
I think this might have been Brian's question. It wasn't my question. Maybe Brian, unfortunately, is not going to be joining us. It's turned into a much larger thing. He says he's sorry he couldn't be here.
That's all good. He's dead to us.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and to us. He's no longer part of the podcast.
I just audibly heard him while he's listening to this interview later going, oh.
I'm just kidding.
No. It's true.
That's true. Yeah.
But he had to ask, were there different endings? Was the ending we get always the intended ending, I guess, with Amy sort of riding off into the sunset, I guess, more or less, and the end with Savannah and all that?
Yeah, came up with that pretty much on the day, a couple days before we shot it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to take that one, Tesh.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like the initial ending was when she jumps at Deputy White and then it cuts to black.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was scripted, but that just felt kind of anticlimactic both ways, because I think like a big thing that people probably bump up against is like Savannah's death, but then it's like it just kind of again with like the amount of things that we had to wrap up and get done in 12 days. That was the ending that made the most like sense, without us doing like massive rewrites on how like the whole thing ended. But after that, it just felt so like inconclusive to not just at least like sit with Amy and then see someone drive off into the sunset, because it's not gonna mean something to everybody, but it was gonna mean something to someone that's like fucked up out there to see like on a hat and just like burning down the house. And I think it's also because of the whole Neville line too. It's like, oh, you think you're gonna kill us one by one and burn down the house? It just felt like it's just like a nicer thing to kind of throw in. So we and honestly, like it was kind of actually spurred on by Amanda Fix. Like she kind of looked at, like when we were shooting the ending stuff, when she just jumps at the camera. That was something we shot on day 4, I believe. And she was like, this isn't the ending, right? And I'm like, immediately, I was like, just like, shit. You know what, you're right. Like, we weren't happy with it, but that really drove it home that we couldn't let that be what it is. So just started trying to plan for something more. And which led to one of the really cool days of our shoot, which was day 10, where Mitch and I actually kind of split up, and we just kind of had like different units and played around a bunch. So the ending, the newer ending with like Amy in the RV, I was shooting that while Mitch was shooting the opening of the film at the same time.
Cool.
Which is really cool. It's like a really cool, like I think unique moment where the ending and the beginning was being shot at the same time.
Simultaneously.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's that yin and yang again.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was curious. Did you guys serve barbecue at the wrap-up party? The wrap party?
Oh man, that's a missed opportunity.
No,
Tubi didn't have barbecue money.
No, we thanks to our supervising producer Patrick, we were able to do like a little bit of a wrap party the day after we finished, which was fun. But we just got everyone out for that. But another missed opportunity was when we showed the film in Saskatoon at the Dark Bridges Festival. I had posted a picture of Arby's and said that we have a surprise for the screening. And I wasn't even thinking about it, but we could have totally gotten everyone beef and cheddars or something from Arby's.
Absolutely.
That wasn't the surprise, but that was another missed opportunity.
That's amazing.
Got to get people to eat the meat after. Well, that sort of wraps up our Low Lives questions, and then we just have a few more general questions before we let you guys get out of here. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you guys were amazing. Thank you.
It was fun.
So first, we can start with Mitch on this one. What are your hobbies? Do you have any hobbies? You know,
my hobbies are movies.
Film.
This is always a tough question. It's movies. I've recently gotten into hiking, so I guess that's something.
You're in a good area for it, from what I understand.
Exactly. But no, other than that, I'm always watching movies. I'm always writing, always planning the next step. But it's that's my life.
You said you were in bands growing up, but are you still playing anything? Or
no, I don't do that anymore. But yeah, I was in a couple of metal bands, punk bands. So like, I play guitar and stuff like that. But that's kind of taking a back seat now to just focusing on film.
Cool. Tesh, hobbies outside of film?
Yeah,
I think not. Go ahead.
No, probably just video games and anime, but that's like still entertainment adjacent. It's like nothing too crazy.
Sure.
I'm a huge fan of like Elden Ring and Dark Souls and like those types of games. So that's pretty fun for me. I think I'm playing. Yeah, anyways, I don't want to get into that. Anyways, like
it's too bad Bryan's not here. I don't play games Ross and Bryan do. I have no
It's always nice to do something where I can just be bad at it, and it's not something I have any pressure
consequential.
To be good. Yeah. So it's like I get the shit kicked out of me on them all the time, and it feels good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
So if someone told you they wanted to be a director, is there any kind of like point movies that you would tell them to watch, like to study or break down?
That's a tough one. I don't know. Like, I don't think there's one single road to take to be able to do it. There's, everyone finds this career path in a different way. Mm-hmm. But for me, like when I decided that I wanted to do it and really take it seriously, I just went back to all the movies that meant the most to me growing up, like Jaws and stuff like that. And just rewatching those and studying those and learning kind of what made the machine tick behind the scenes. Watching it with the sound off is always like a good tip that I found. But yeah, no, that's a tough one. I just think if you want to make movies, and you just got to follow what you love and just, watch those movies again and go and see what other people are doing and then throw it all out the window and try and make something that you want to watch.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm gonna smack some real talk here.
Into it.
I've seen too many. This also being me for such a long period of time, because this is not something I knew I wanted to do since I was a kid or anything. I only realized I wanted to make movies after I turned 23, and that was like 10 years ago. So it's like, I spent a lot of time thinking that what I had to do was be ready to make movies, that I had to watch movies, that I had to observe movies, that I had to learn movies, I had to study movies. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing I learned is just making movies is like the best thing that you can do. And you don't need a lot of resources. You just need one more person, drag a friend, drag anyone that you can find, use a cell phone, use whatever. The best way to learn how to make movies is to just do it over and over again and fail at it over and over again, show it to people over and over again, and see how disappointed they are when you make something garbage over and over again, and learn to like just impress them an inch more each time. It's like that's pretty much it. It's like if they don't like it, don't be rejected by it, don't be scared of it, don't let that like break your heart or whatever. It doesn't matter. Opinions doesn't matter. Like Lowlifes is out, Influence is out. Go look at like the 1-star ratings on it. Yeah, that doesn't phase me, because it's like the thing that matters is the fact that we picked up cameras and we went out there and we made these things, while other people can just sit down and talk about it and watch movies and be analytic as fuck. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't equate to actual filmmaking. That doesn't equate to like meeting people and discovering what it is, and seeing audience reaction, seeing like being able to do something like this where you guys enjoyed the hell out of it and we get to like talk about it. It's like there's a community, there's so much that can be built from it. So for me, it's like, if there's anyone that's ever going to talk to me about directing, I don't want to hear them talk to me about another fucking movie. I just want them to talk to me about their movie that they're going to make today.
No,
if they're not have that, then I don't care.
Yeah. No, that's a really good way of putting that. And obviously kind of apples to oranges. I've been tattooing for close to 20 years. And the physical act of tattooing gets you further than like the philosophy behind tattooing. And I think in a lot of crafts, it's like the physical act of doing it. And then you can show it to your peers and then they could be like, wow, this is great. Or I like this aspect of it. This sucked, but maybe you could do X, Y, or Z, or like maybe think more about this, when you can kind of curb check your ego and then be able to just experience the critique from your peers and with a body of work that's your own, I feel speaks more volumes. I mean, obviously the prep work of like learning and like, the book smarts versus the action smarts, you know what I mean? But like the physical act of doing it, I feel like the failure or partial failures that you may have actually do way better than like just trying
all your failed tattoos out there.
Oh, are you kidding me? With 20 years of doing it, I have train wrecked some stuff in my early days. But what's different though is that like, in the beginning of tattooing, it was like very like very same thing. You had incredibly nice people to tattoo on, stuff like that. And then what's great, at least with tattooing, is that I can go back and just cover it up years later. And like, it never happened.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's a hobby. I've just been like going really ham on like getting tattoos and everything.
Oh, awesome.
Like,
have you? Cool. I just got my first. I just got my first tattoo ever in
I know, we can see
February.
it. Just it looks really nice right below the eye there.
Yeah, thank you. It says godless.
Yeah.
But Ross did it, of course.
Yeah.
I think like that's kind of like my note. I don't know. It's like it's something that I believe in strongly. It's like studying the masters is kind of figure out who you are before you let other people kind of like influence all of that stuff. It's like whatever kind of like gets you the closest to just doing the thing is, I think, the most effective strategy. Because now I'm like at a place where I think the last couple months I've been thinking about like more studying filmmaking and stuff like that. But after getting my hands dirty and everything, right? Because now I know what my voice is, and it's easier for me to like find ways to refine that by studying better movies than to like not find what my voice is, rip off
try
a bunch
and find it from other people,
which is still great. It's also like, you know, it's also great to emulate your favorite filmmakers if that's the direction you want to go. Guy Ritchie's made an entire career doing that, so it's like
Totally. It's
he makes great movies.
He's still doing it somehow.
It's fine tuning and sharpening your tools, but you just have to figure out what your tools are beforehand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get those 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
So Tesh, you might have an answer, but I know you're not the biggest horror guy. Has there any horror movie either of you watched, a newer one in the past couple years, that really impressed you, that you would recommend to anyone?
For me, it's one of them is My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To. Not sure if you guys have seen that one, but
I've never even heard of that one. It's going on the watch list.
Yeah, we programmed it at our film festival. I think it was in 2020 or 2021, but I actually ended up becoming pals with the director because that was a huge inspiration for me. It's just it's a very contained like horror drama. It's a very, very much a family drama, but this brother and sister, and the brother's Patrick Fugit from like, he was the kid in Almost Famous. That was a big, that was a big movie for me growing up. And then, I think the little brother is Owen something. He's an X. But anyways, he plays, it's essentially like, it's a vampire movie, but not a vampire movie. And that one really stood out to me. It's 3 characters, 1 location, and it just really packed a punch for me. So that one did a lot for me. But yeah, like I said, I became buddies with the director, and he kind of mentored me in a lot of ways through my first short film. Because I just saw that movie and I saw, the kind of stuff that I wish I could make someday. So that would be my answer for that one.
I think for me, I don't know if they're necessarily considered as horror, but Climax and Pearl.
Definitely horror.
But those movies
Pearl
together,
definitely does.
Yeah.
What was the first one? Climax?
Yeah, Gaspar Noé. That movie, I talk about that movie all the time because that's a movie that can just make you feel sick.
It's already in my watch list, that one, apparently.
It's a blast.
I'll have to move it up.
I think just like if you, for me, like the theory with that one is if you could shoot a horror movie like the way Climax unfolds, it would be pretty epic. It's sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, now I'm really interested. All right. Might watch that tonight.
Yeah.
So if you had a particular is there a particular franchise that you would like to explore that universe? Like if you had the rights to it and was able to, like, they just handed it to you and went, you can do whatever the fuck you want with it, would there be a certain intellectual property that you would want to just like fiddle around in?
Evil Dead for me. Absolutely. Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think both of those for different reasons. Evil Dead, I think all of them are good. There's not one movie in that whole franchise that I don't love. Yeah. And all of them have different flavors to them. And it just shows that you can do just a wide range of different ideas with that core concept. And then on the other hand, you have a movie like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I would love to make one of those movies because there's a lot of dog shit in there. So I know that, there's a chance that I won't make the worst one.
It'd be harder to for you to make the worst one. Yeah. I think that it would be to not. Yeah. But cool. Tesh? Could be anything. It doesn't have to be horror.
No, I mean, I've always loved like Alien and Predator. I feel like there's definitely a take in there to just kind of keep that like confined creature and things genre and doing something really cool with it. Again, talking about these kinds of relationships, I think like something that's kind of like historically lacked in alien movies since Aliens, I'd say, is that incredible relationship building between the team that's trapped with these things. And we haven't really seen that in a very long time. And I feel like that's part of the terror, is like if you can kind of have someone care about the families, and there's like things happening, and they're not just like, let's just have these like assholes that we want to see this thing like rip into, but really just like feel for each death and just keep soaking in that terror, the grief, the loss, and then build it up to like incredible anger within whoever needs to confront the force and whatever it is. I think that there's just so much like potential and primal things that always existed within that. And so I'm kind of excited to also obviously see the new one and see what,
me too, fatty.
But yeah, I think that's one. But if not, then there's the Sandman series.
Oh yeah.
Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That would be. Did you watch? I actually didn't watch the Netflix series. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. I was not too stoked.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, but that's 'cause I also read the graphic novels, and this is stupid.
Of course, yeah.
15 years ago, I was just like, oh, I want to turn this into something, and then it's like nothing like how I see it. So it's always going to be down.
I know that's one people have been trying to do forever.
Yeah, but I think that's something I would love to do as animation more than live action.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It really would work way better with animation. Like if you kind of take like Spider-Verse style and like just kind of
you can play with the world so much because they play with the storytelling of comics within Sandman.
Mm-hmm. Like and the big part about that character Dream too is he's so like malleable and ethereal and kind of moves through these worlds and has like a different kind of, he's different to different people as he appears. And I feel like that element kind of gets taken away when you have like a live action actor, but then if you just have like a great voice actor, and then you can just turn Dream into like all these like different figures, so that it's just like this really evocative, like that massive world building angle to it, and then you're not limited by like shitty VFX and budgets. Some really crazy visuals.
Cool.
So yeah.
All right, up next we have our rapid fire questions, and we'll go we'll do Tesh, Mitch, and you can just answer after each one rather than going through for one of you and then the other. So, classic monsters or modern slashers?
Modern slashers.
Classic monsters.
Oh, yang yang.
The gang, baby.
Gore or suspense?
Suspense.
Supernatural creatures or human villains?
Supernatural creatures.
Supernatural creatures.
Werewolves or vampires?
Vampires.
Werewolves.
Horror comedy or pure terror?
Pure terror.
Pure terror.
Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees?
I don't care for either of them.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
I'll go with Freddy. Nightmares are more fun.
Norman Bates or Leatherface?
Norman Bates.
Leatherface. These are all of them tough for me.
Sure, right? Yeah, it's like picking between your children.
Yeah. Like I like every single thing on that
Sophie's
list.
choice.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that wraps it up. I want to thank you guys again so much for your time. Tesh, Bryan wanted me to specifically tell you he watched Influencer and Lowlifes as a double feature today, actually. And he recommends that people watch them as a double feature. It worked well, apparently. I'm sure he'd say more to it, but he's dead to us, so we can't hear him.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much, for real. Thank everybody for listening. Follow Chuddle the Pod wherever. More importantly, watch Lowlifes on Tubi. It's free. You have no excuse. You have to watch some commercials, but they seem like they may have put them in there a little more strategically, because sometimes movies on Tubi, it just smacks you in the face. Works for this one. Watch Lowlifes, Tubi. Thank you. Avoid the time loop.